Good morning, people. Hello, Cherie. Hello, Cherie. So, good morning, people. So, good morning, people. Hey, look, here's Ender. Good morning, Ender. Love the shirt. Welcome. Glad you are here. Tell you a story. Way back in the early days of our community, we began slowing down the calendar during the summertime for the obvious reasons that, vacations and things like that. But the primary reason that we did it was because of me. Because for a long time, I was the main organizer of all the things that happened in our community. And part of the reason for that is people have in the past referred to our community as a 12-step church for recovering Christians, because folks would come in kind of limping on their last church leg, kind of disillusioned by the institution, didn't want to be asked to do anything, didn't trust anything. I don't know why they came, because they thought church was the problem, not the solution. So I actually used to encourage people to not do stuff. For a long, long time, that was our primary posture: don't do stuff. And that meant I did a lot of stuff. And so I organized this summer slowdown primarily to give myself a break because I was tired. It's different now, but you can still hear the echoes of what we learned during those years when you hear me say pretty regularly, if you've got 10 units of energy to give to the community, spend 8 of them on making friends. Because that's kind of what we discovered during our summer slowdown times. We learned that the summertime is an ideal time with less going on in the schedule, actually fewer people in town, usually a smaller group on Sundays. It's an ideal time to begin to make and deepen friendships. So it's a great time, and I would encourage you for the balance of the summer to invite someone to go to lunch or go to the park and let the kids run around and catch up with each other. Begin using the summertime as make friends time. And here's the thing, you've been doing that. Oh, there it is. You've been doing that. You've been doing that this summer, a little more organized than we used to do in the old days, but we're actually making spaces for folks to start building friendships. I hope that becomes an ongoing part of our rhythm forever. Here's the thing. The strength of a community doesn't rest in its schedule or in its groups or in its budgets or in its Sundays or how profoundly wonderful the speakers are. It doesn't have to do with any of that stuff. The strength of the community is in the network of friendships that the community is built on. So that's not something the preacher can do. That's not something the planning team can do. That's something that we do. Only we can make friendships happen. So may I encourage you, if you've got 10 units of energy, 8 of them making friends. So welcome to Common Thread. I hope you make friends here. If you are new, we'd like to send you an email as a way to get you started in the process. If you're tuning in, if you go to the QR code that's on the screen, or if you just go to our website /Newcomer, you can get an email. That email will tell you about stuff, and then it'll invite you when you're ready to get connected to people. Also, the health of a community is often measured by how well we stand with one another in our times of trouble. And that's just not an American thing to do. We don't tend to do that. We tend to keep that inside. So we always encourage one another on a weekly basis to, if you're having rough days, allow us to stand with one another. So 3 ways to do that. Use the QR code, go to the website /soul, or just in the back, there will be somebody sitting back there with a name tag on. Sit down and say, hey, let's chat. Let's say as we do each week, if you're here, you belong.
If you're here, you belong.
Very good. And let's say together, we are, every one of us. No. I say it first, then you say it. We are, every one of us, carriers of the inner light. Now. And we are, every one of us, carriers of divine breath.
We are, every one of us, carriers of divine breath.
Excellent. Here's some ways before the meditation for us to connect in the community. Today, those of you on Zoom, we have What Are You Thinking afterwards. We'd love you to check that out. There's a teen outing at Frankie's Fun Park. This evening, Brew Crew is meeting at the Burial Transfer Food Hall. There's a chance to volunteer at the Garner Back to School Bash. Artsy Group meets Saturday. Centering Prayer Groups meets next Sunday. And as always, you can get the details for all of those things. Just either go to our website or go to our app or open up the Thursday email and you'll find out everything you need to know about that. Well, let's talk about that Newcomer one that you saw a moment ago. Here's what that is. It's informal, but it's structured enough that you won't feel uncomfortable just showing up with unstructured time. It's a time to get to know. It's a time to be gotten to know. You'll get to ask questions about the community. You'll get to hear answers to other people's questions about the community, and there will be pizza and cookies. It is always difficult to show up to a thing wondering if you're going to be comfortable when you get there. I know the people who are organizing this thing. I can pretty much promise you when you get there, you will be comfortable coming to this thing. And also, if you're an old comer and you would like to come, do that, because that way you can get to meet some newcomers, so you are welcome too. And then finally, ways you can help in the community. So you can always see that list by going to the QR code. You can go to the front page of our app, or you can go to our website /clipboard. But here's what's on the list today. Not much. And the reason not much is on the list today is because, thank you. You all have been responding and responding very, very well. I think we are about staffed for our younger kids. I think, we'll know this for sure by Sunday after next, but I'm thinking we're about ready to unleash Shelby to her sweet spot, what she's really good at, and that is training and team building people to work together to love our kids. So once we have that, then we can begin unleashing her to be as creative as she is. So well done, thank you. In the process of doing that, we also, I think, are very close to being able to have childcare after church on Sundays, which means we can start doing connecting with each other things after church. Because here's something that we've learned along the way. By the time you've gotten dressed, and by the time you've gotten yourself into the car, by the time you've thrown a little bit of food at the kids, by the time you've gotten through 8 or 10 stoplights to get here, by the time you sit down, you've paid a premium. So we might as well take advantage of that. So let's go ahead and do this. But then afterwards, let's also do other stuff. And so we would like to do that. And so we think we're getting pretty close. Again, no, 2 weeks from now. Thank you very much for all the leads that you've sent in. We're about ready to start shifting our focus toward the teenagers. Yay!
You can take my kids, please.
Please. Let's see here. Where are we? Yeah, there we are. Okay. Let's go ahead and find a comfortable place in our bodies. For this month's contemplative focus, we're returning to the welcome prayer. You've probably gathered by now, we rotate through 4 core contemplative practices. There are many contemplative practices, but these 4 kind of cover all the bases and give you kind of a pretty structured understanding of contemplative practice. So the welcome prayer is a contemplative practice, and this is the base that it covers. It's for those moments in life when we find ourselves energized. We used to say afflicted, but energy comes in non-afflicted ways as well. When we find ourselves energized, or maybe perhaps a little bit driven by ego. So, of the practices, the first one we learn is centering prayer, also called mindfulness meditation. It's the practice where we learn to let go of monkey mind, those constant chattering thoughts in our minds. It's the practice of letting go of the habituation of our thought lives. It's the practice of letting go of the tyranny that often runs those thoughts in our minds. Well, the welcome prayer helps us return to that posture when we're in the middle of our everyday rough and tumble lives. So we participate in the practice, welcoming prayer, whenever we notice ourselves having a surge, an energy surge. Now, maybe it'll be an anxiety energy surge. Maybe it could be a sorrow energy surge. Maybe it could be anger. Or maybe it could just be getting stuff done. I'm getting stuff done. I'm getting stuff done. Or I'm meeting my boss's expectation. Or I'm doing stuff. I'm getting stuff. I'm chasing stuff. The energy that indicates we are now functioning in our ego selves. So if we can see that happen, if we see ourselves caught up in some surge or another during the days, there's a very good chance that that's an indicator of defaulting back to type, if we use Enneagram language, or defaulting back to an ego strategy. Now, we see those moments, those energy surge moments, better if we are consistent in the practice of mindfulness meditation. If we sit down at the beginning of the day, and if we do that several days a week, or if we do it daily, and if we practice letting go of thoughts for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, if we do it on a regular basis, if we do that, then through the course of the week, when those energy surge moments come up, instead of just being mindlessly carried by them, we're more likely to be able to notice them, see them, and be able to respond with the welcome prayer, so that we see our energy surges better than we did. And when we do, the prayer, the welcome prayer. We breathe in, just do that together, and we let go. We breathe in, and we let go. Read this with me. This is the prayer in its whole. Welcome and breathe. Welcome and breathe. Welcome and breathe. I let go of my compulsive need for power and control. Welcome and breathe. I let go of my compulsive need for safety and security. Welcome and breathe. I let go of my compulsive need for affirmation or esteem. Welcome and breathe. And I let go of my compulsive need to change the situation, because what that typically means is I want things to line up with my ego as self. And then we finish with welcome, breathe, welcome, breathe, welcome, breathe. It's also quite possible to short circuit all of that and make it a one-word prayer. Welcome and breathe. Welcome and breathe. And we could do that slowly. We could do it under our breath. No one needs know that we are in the middle of a contemplative practice. We shift our breathing, and by shifting our breathing, we shift our focus. And we are saying, divine center within me, welcome. Ego self, I let go. Divine center, welcome. Ego self, I let go. And so to help you, just keep this in mind. It's welcome, power and control, safety, security, affirmation and esteem, and my compulsive need to change the situation. All right? Let's practice. Let's begin stacking our weight on our vertebrae. finding a balance point for our heads so that we can hold still while letting the tension of our bodies go. Begin to slow ourselves down. Check in with your body. Is there tension around your eyes, your jaw, through your neck and shoulders? Breathe in. Let that tension go. Is there tension through your abdomen, your chest, your back? Notice. Breathe in. Let the tension go. Notice your legs down into your feet. And if you find tension there, breathe in and let go. Giving attention to our minds for a few moments. Notice your thoughts. And when you see a thought, breathe in, and by giving your attention to your breath instead of the thought, let that thought go. Tension in our bodies is persistent. Thoughts in our minds are persistent, so it takes some practice. Let's take 3, 4, maybe 5 breaths. Breathing in, letting go of our thoughts, letting go of tension, relaxing. Take a few moments. Sitting here isn't really the venue in which we practice the welcome prayer. So this morning, let's practice it in an after-the-fact kind of way. Allow to come to your mind, some moment of surging energy in the last week or so. Perhaps it would be an afflictive emotion, surging anger or surging anxiety, maybe despair, maybe resentment or bitterness. Or maybe driven by a deadline or the expectations of other people, it was a surge of energy around completion or closure. Or maybe driven by another energy center, it was a surge around meeting someone's expectations, pleasing someone. Allow to come to mind that moment and picture yourself there. Remember, see if you can evoke the feelings you were feeling in the moment. And with that moment fixed in your mind, let's practice this morning the welcome prayer. Breathe in, and as you breathe out, welcome. Breath, welcome. Welcome. Repeat the line of the prayer in your own mind. I let go of my compulsive need for power or control. Breath and welcome. I let go of my compulsive need for safety or security. Breath and welcome. I let go of my compulsive need for affirmation or esteem. Breath. Welcome. And I let go of my compulsive need to change the situation. Welcome. Take a few more moments breathing, letting go. Maybe synchronize your breath with that single word prayer. Welcome. Welcome. And so, indwelling divine, may we be able to observe. May we be able to be aware of those moments when we are hijacked by the surging energy of ego. May we be alert to those moments when we are not drawing from the interior light, the divine center. And in those moments of heightened awareness, may we return to breathing in, letting go, drawing forth the divine center every one of us carries. Amen. Well, good morning again. And thank you. And I do hope that you will make the welcome prayer part of the rhythm of your practice. I've had several cementing the practice in my own life experiences where surging moment of anxiety or drivenness or whatever, and I practiced the prayer. I often practice it when I'm driving. I often practice it when I'm getting ready to fall asleep, because those seem like the moments when surging happens for me. And I've actually been able to watch my own soul return to that space of drawing from the inner divine. I recommend the practice to you. Make it part of your habituated life. So you know we have been in the middle of this lesson on rehabilitating our religion. Kintsugi is the metaphor that we've been using, the Japanese art of repairing and restoring what's been broken, and clearly our religion has been. I was going to do the last lesson in this series saying, if we're going to rehabilitate our religion, we're also going to have to rehabilitate our practices. I decided that's worthy of the whole month of September, so we're going to talk about that. So right now we're still saying if you're going to rehabilitate the religion, you're going to have to rehabilitate the story on which the religion is built. And so today we're going to talk about sin. We've got a story about sin, and so Angie, come on up and tell it to us. And by the way, you got the flipper? Yeah.
Good morning. Before I, oh yes, thanks. So happy today, I have a pocket. All right, am I good? All right. Before I actually get into my comments on sin, makes me laugh that I'm talking about sin. I have a few, oh no, that's backwards. I have a few announcements that just happen to be related to projects I'm working on in the church. So just aligned by chance today that these announcements need to be made, and I'm the speaker, so it made sense to do it now. The first one is related to our bylaws. So we are working on the founder's dilemma and making sure that when Doug steps back from his current role, that things here just keep plugging along in a sustainable way, especially related to our ability to govern ourselves. So we've been working on writing bylaws, and the bylaws have been written, revised, presented. We've done lots of work around them, and now we're at the point where we are getting ready to talk about ratifying them. That's going to be done in two bodies. One is by the congregation as a whole, and then the other is by a select group called elders. And so towards that aim, we're trying to ratify by September, if that's possible. If it's not possible, we'll adapt. But we thought it would be a good idea for me to stay after the next Sundays in August, not today, but starting next Sunday and each Sunday after in August, to just meet with people if they have any questions, if they want to talk about something, if they have a concern. Okay? So I'll be like over here the next Sundays after church for anybody who wants to look at that. And we have the bylaws posted on the website and on the app. On the app, they're like the first button up there. It says proposed bylaws. And you can also go to commonthread.org/bylaws and find them. Okay? So I encourage you, if you have any curiosity or interest about that, to please follow that and look at them and bring your understanding and knowledge to bear so that we can have the best governing structure moving forward as we can. One thing I would like to caution you about, though, is keep in mind the difference between a constitution and laws. Okay? These bylaws are like the Constitution, all right? And the Constitution tells you how later you're going to make laws, right? So don't go to that document looking for decisions, right? Go to that document with the spirit of, this is how in the future we will make decisions as a loving community, okay? So, but not what the decisions will be necessarily, but how they'll be made, okay? So I hope that helps. I look forward to meeting with anybody who wants to bring some energy to that. All right, the next thing is, you all know Josh, and Josh has been with our community for quite a while. Yes, raise your hand, Josh. He's been with our community quite a while. When we moved from our other location to here, it caused Josh a lot of stress because he loves this community, and we love Josh, but he cannot drive because he is visually impaired. So we have been working on making sure that as a loving community, we take care of all of our people, and Josh has been a focus of that. And so we have been working on getting him to and from church. We have the getting to church covered because I happen to love picking Josh up and taking him to church when I'm here, and if I can't do it, other people love to do it, okay? But the getting home part is the trick. Because like next week, I can't take him home, right? Because I need to stay here and work on the bylaws. And in any given Sunday, some people want to stay after for a variety of activities. And so we've decided we need, in keeping with like our community's basic rhythm, we need a like here now plan for how we're going to get Josh home anytime he's here, right? We could like plan it out in advance and make a whole chart and remind people, but that just seems like a big complicated process that would need maintenance. So what we're going to do instead, starting next week, is whenever Josh is with us, we're going to just take a moment in the service and say, hey, can anyone take Josh home today? He lives 9 minutes from here, close to where our old church is, okay? If no one is able to take him all the way home, then we're just going to get him in an Uber because Josh is learning how to Uber. Kim Hunsucker has taught Josh how to Uber, and I am reinforcing that with him today, and he's going to do it all by himself. I'm going to be the silent partner in the car today. So starting next week, what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, who can take Josh home today, or who can help Josh Uber? And depending on what the plan is, we're going to hand you a piece of paper that tells you exactly how to do it, okay? And then he'll get home safely and securely, and he will be at peace that whenever he is here, that he is going to get home. The added benefit of this is that you'll have a chance to get to know Josh if you're the one to decide to take him home one day, and you're going to find out what a lovely person he is and how much fun he is to be friends with. So that's an added bonus of this plan. Okay, are there any questions about this plan? No? All right, very good. Well, thank you. Let me see if there's, yeah, okay. So, I think that's it. Let me get back to sin. I don't need to advance this anymore, so I think I'm going to just set it over there. I'm going to take a sip of water. Whenever I do that, I remember that Marco Rubio. Did y'all ever see that response, the Republican response, where he needed to drink water? And it was, yeah, probably. I was a social studies teacher at the time. I was really watching every single thing that was happening in the political world at that time, and I remember that really specifically. Okay. You can imagine that someone who is an Enneagram 1 and therefore focused on reform with a weak spot for perfectionism paid close attention to any discussion of sin. And so sin is the topic of my lesson today. I remember thinking there was bad and then there was sin. And sin was like really, really bad, like make God mad bad. Might go to burn in eternal hell if you do that bad. So yeah, I was laser focused on sin. I was the person who didn't even want to get a B in school, so hell was just entirely out of the question. It seemed like the sin things got some extra attention from my parents. I recall trying to shoplift a funnel. Don't ask me why. I mean, a funnel. Not candy, mind you, a funnel. At the age of 5 from a store. And that was a whole go back in and talk to the manager thing that led to such immense shame. Yes, shame. Shame seemed to be the feeling we were going for when it came to sin. Lying, stealing, disrespecting my parents, anything sexual outside of committed relationships, inflicting pain on innocent things, all of those seemed to reach sin level with them. It was very important to steer clear, and I did, until I didn't, and then I kept it secret and felt shame. Later, when I was in that Bible reading phase, I realized there were 10 commandments that added a layer of detail. I was feeling pretty good about those. I did not covet my neighbor, worship idols, or make graven images. I was not committing adultery, and I got in the car when we went to church. I did have a bad habit of taking the Lord's name in vain, but I really hoped and doubted the scales would tip towards hell over that one. Later, I heard there were 7 deadly sins, and I was like, oh, cool, an actual list. This is going to be great, helpful. I was a little disturbed to hear they were kind of vague. Gluttony, avarice, greed, envy, wrath, sloth, lust. Like, was 2 pieces of cake gluttony? If I was really jealous that Jenna could get her hair to wing back perfectly on both sides, was that envy? I was a little worried about these details, but not too worried because I was young and heaven and hell seemed really far away. But of course, merely getting into heaven was not my focus. I wanted to be the good kid, the example. And I didn't have a lot of problems upholding that standard until college. For whatever reason, and trust me, I considered all the reasons, boys did not pick me in high school. I worked hard to embody conventional standards of female attractiveness, and I went to the parties, and I did the things. But I was a terrible flirter. I didn't get that whole eye contact thing, and I was terrible at silly banter. 3 minutes into a convo, and I wanted to talk about something substantial. So all convos lasted about 4 minutes. Finally, in college, a guy did pick me. And he was nice, cute, smart, and tall. And let me tell you, I intended to hold on to that one. Might be the last one to come along. 4 or 5 months into our relationship, hugs had turned to kisses, and kisses to touches. And next thing you know, I was up against a real sin boundary. Premarital sex was a sin. I had been told many times. I had also been told that a man could only have a fulfilling life if she got married. I had also been told men have needs, and if you don't meet them, they will find someone who will. And so I was scared. Looking back on it, I was more scared than lustful, and that should have been a sign. But I had never centered what I actually wanted in my decision-making, so it was easy to ignore. I coped by getting very philosophical about what marriage meant. I went to the Bible and realized, surprise, it wasn't very clear. You had people who were married in the Bible, but it wasn't clear how they got that way. Were they married by the church or by the government? Which one was the real one in terms of sexual behavior? I decided maybe the act of sexual intercourse was the real marrying of two people. And you might see where this was going. I could have sex with my boyfriend, but I damn well better marry him because in the eyes of God, we were already married. And so, no surprise here, I did have sex with my boyfriend. And I did marry him. Sin bullet dodged by an expertly contrived loophole. Imagine my shock when, as you get older, you can talk to your parents about things you couldn't talk to them about because you're too old for them to, punish. So imagine my shock when I worked up the courage to ask my mom, Mom, what % of seniors in your graduating class of 1957 were having premarital sex? And she scrunched up her face. Let's get a number in your head. What number you think it is? Okay. She scrunched up her face and thought about it and said, probably 90%. I was dumbfounded. What's up with all these people telling you not to sin and then sinning? And then I remembered the big fundamentalist escape hatch. No matter what you did, there seemed to be this get out of jail free card you could exercise if you really found yourself in a pickle. After getting confirmed and baptized, you could still screw around, sin all you want, and then later go to an altar call and give your life to Jesus, act right after that, and you could still get into heaven. Handy. When I started deconstructing my faith, one of the first things to go, or to get the old heave-ho, was hell. As I've said many times before, how would you define it? The first thing I'll say is even before we define it, it is pretty much inevitable. Hard as Angie has tried to be perfect, I want to assure you she has failed many, many times. Many of my sins come from existing in a broken system. Just take my earlier example. I'm a woman in a patriarchal system. Vanity was inevitable. I can't tell you the number of hours I spent staring in the mirror as a female in this culture. I could have 18 doctoral degrees if I could get those hours back. But the patriarchal system told me that in order to have value or any sort of good life, I desperately needed to attract the attention of men. And the way to attract them was visually. And so I contorted myself into a shapeshifter with makeup, wired undergarments, and spent untold thousands on products to reach the feminine ideal. And I stared into any mirror I could find to assess how my obsessive project was going at any given moment. If vanity is a sin, I plead guilty. And it wasn't my fault. Can you imagine how marginalized people in other communities have had to compromise their true selves to merely survive in a broken system of racism, imperialism, late-stage capitalism, ableism, and homophobia? Other sins are inevitable because it's developmentally appropriate. The easiest example of this is a newborn baby. These tiny humans are depraved in their inhumanity. They are physical parasites on their mothers, and then once brought into the world, have the gall to wake her up every 2 hours, once born, to feed off of her. Have they no empathy? No, they don't. If they don't eat regularly, they will quite literally die. This is the time to be a self-centered demon and let there be no peace until your survival is ensured. If you buy that justification for sin, apply the same principle to adolescents who are desperately trying to summon the courage to live independently in the world and have raging hormones, and you've got teenage sin covered too. Just defining sin is hard, because the exact same physical action can be a sin or a generous gift of grace, and you really can't tell which unless you know the motivations of the people involved. A lot of my sin has actually been a byproduct of my personality, and it looked entirely virtuous to those observing it. I'm an Enneagram 1. It manifests itself as reform-minded in me, and I am a bit of an avoidant. Avoidants are uncomfortable with their emotions, and as such are prone to be workaholics, as a means of avoiding connection. You take those two, add a career in teaching, and bam, you have dysfunction wrapped in a cloak of virtue. I assure you my family members did not always see my dedication to my profession as virtuous, and my children at times felt abandoned. Is it a sin to make your children feel that way? Does sin actually require intention? Or can you sin without intention? And so here we are, almost to the end of this lesson, and I haven't even defined sin. I've hedged the question and saved it for last because I actually don't know. I probably don't know because I'm not that worried about it anymore. My sinning is inevitable. I don't believe I will suffer interminable hell for it. And I have a sense it's not that big of a deal, but I should still pay attention to it. So why? My intuition tells me that whatever sin is, it causes afflictive feelings in me. And if I were attuned enough to recognize those feelings, and brave enough to observe and name them, and braver still to forthrightly address them, we would all be better off. In fact, the identifying mark of early Christians was the fact they were one-hearted. Let me explain. In ancient Greece and Rome, there was the idea that you had a public face and a private one. These were two very separate spheres, and it was like each person was literally two-faced, though they called it two-hearted. The same guy making incredible speeches about courage and loyalty in the public forum could be beating his slaves out of anger in private. The two were seen as entirely unrelated and not hypocritical. One thing people said about the earliest followers of Jesus that made them seem quite radical is that they were one-hearted. They merged and lived transparently in every aspect of their lives. This is part of why they scared the crap out of the establishment. Being a follower of Jesus meant you could not hide your faults or pretend to be what you were not. And that means you had to kill your ego. You have to kill your ego, die, and be reborn to a new, transparent life. And a lot of egos are just not ready for that. I remember my early meetings with Doug reflected this subtle but radical shift. In the past, when I had met with the preacher man, the meetings had the following assumptions at work. I was a sinner. The preacher was the teacher on God's behalf, and I needed to humble myself before that authority. When I met with Doug, I would ask, "How are you?" as a typical greeting. And he would say something like, "Well, I'm having insert afflictive emotion here, about insert typically private situation here, and it's really hard," sometimes really private, "and it's really hard because my ego wants to react badly this way, but I know I need to do this other thing." And I would be kind of startled, and at the same time extremely relieved. Because if the preacher man could confess all his dirt, I could too. And I actually think leading by example this way is one of the most powerful things he has done as the leader of this spiritual community. It has been a yeast that multiplied, and now we have a very authentic and rare spiritual community. Since I'm an avoidant, it's weird that I have any friends. I'm a pretty terrible friend who often doesn't text back. I've spoken before about how just being in the same town and job for so long was critical to helping me avoid isolation. One thing I know for sure, the friends I do have seem to value that I'm one-hearted. I'm transparent. And so we get into real conversations and deal with the real afflictive feelings we have as we understand them. We get deep, and that's what spiritual friendship is really about. And a lot of people are looking for that these days. It's the gift I have to give, and I am happy to give it. I think we might be created here with a specific spiritual fingerprint, a specific point of view, and a set of gifts that we can bring to bear in a troubled world. And sin might just be anything that blocks that energy and prevents that creation from being fully at work in the world. Broken systems and developmental realities might, for a time, force us to create a false self to survive. And that process might create sin for a time. But if we can let that ego die away as we age and realize we are truly safe and loved, we can become the true manifestation of creation and truly realize the beauty of God's grace. So I say, go forth boldly and sin, sisters and brothers. And then realize the limitations of that life and submit to a growth process that will allow you to be one-hearted, aligned with creation, and at peace to the greatest degree possible in a deeply troubled world. Then perhaps we can go about being the repairers of the world we are called by our faith to be. So, indwelling divine, let us turn our hearts and minds to our afflictive emotions. May we welcome them and let them do the work of showing us the limitations of our personalities. And in so doing, may our actions, over time, better align with the incredible capacity of divine light and life. Amen.
Well, if you would please prepare your offerings, and let us remember, as we say each week, there is always good return when we invest in spiritual community. We give one another our time and our energy and our love and our dollars. And then the community, together, we take those gifts, we amplify them, and we give them back to one another in the form of this environment in which we thrive, transform, flourish, and grow. We all give online now. At the top of the website, there's a donate button. Please do. And those of you who are online, we are going to dismiss you, and then we're going to have a discussion here in the room. And we invite you to have your own discussion on Zoom. If you go to the front page of our website, you will find the link there. It's called What Are You Thinking on Zoom? And when you get there, it might ask you for a password. If it does, that password is 1417. 1417. Again, it's like we said about the newcomer thing. It's awkward to show up at a new thing if you don't know you're going to be accepted. But I know the people who are there, and I know they're going to make it very comfortable for you. So I hope you will try it out. It's a great way to get to know people and to process the things that we're learning together. So let's go ahead and dismiss the folks who are online. If you would, please put your hand on your heart, and let's remember that we are, every one of us, carriers of the indwelling divine, which means within us is love and joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, self-control. All those things are within us because we carry divine light. And if you would also then extend your other hand to our city, let's look for opportunities to share what's already in us with the people that we live with, work with, go to school with. Let's look for opportunities to repair and heal our worlds. Amen. God bless you all. You all are dismissed. We are not. So here's what we're going to do. Angie asked me to set it